Michael, the 2021 Tour de France route just dropped. You spent your entire Sunday watching the route presentation and dissecting this course. Give me the rundown.
Ian, the 2021 Tour de France route did indeed drop over the weekend. This is the nitty-gritty rundown. There are 6 major mountain stages, 5 intermediate mountain stages, 8 flat stages, and 2 individual time trials. There are only 3 summit finishes though. Ian, I am expecting some very strong opinions from you. Let's hear them.
Well, first and foremost, it is about time that time trialing came back to Grand Tours. Last year's time trial was basically an individual mountain climb. It had nothing to do with the race against the clock, and it obviously made for super boring racing. I am incredibly excited about the 50+ kilometers of time trialing on this course.
You are literally the only person on the face of the planet who has called the 2020 Tour de France individual time trial boring. What's so great about the ones this year?
These time trials are flat. You don't have to be a super climber who's already racked up time on everybody else on the big mountain passes to do well in these time trials. The Tour de France put 2 major features in this course, and they are gaining a lot of attention. Obviously, the return of the time trials and the double Mont Ventoux stage. It's pretty long. It's not over 200 kilometers, which I would have preferred, but going up Mont Ventoux twice. One time from the less steep salt side, and then up and over the top. And get this, it is finishing not at the top of Mont Ventoux, but down at the bottom of the mountain coming off the descent. This is going to make for a crazy, wild, and totally unpredictable stage that is going to select a big champion and probably the eventual winner of the Tour de France.
So 2 time trials, 2 times up Mont Ventoux. These are the big stories that everybody's talking about, and they're what Ian is very excited about. Predictably, I'm not. These are the days that I'm least looking forward to. I'm going to go into detail about that a little bit later on. Where are we? Turning it around. Hard work navigating a pedestrian path and talking about the Tour de France. All while riding a bicycle, because the team at FloBikes is, of course, first and foremost, excellent bicycle riders.
A lot of nature happening down there. Those little are doing it too? Alright, we are back in a little bit of civilization. Mask is on, and it's going to be a lot easier to talk about this route because there's a lot of stuff that we need to get into here. Okay, healthy distance from people. Where was I? Got a little turned around on my bike. Just ordered some coffees. What they've just made is an incredibly well-rounded race. There are some big long stages. Actually, the longest stage that we've seen in the Tour de France for 20, 30 some odd years. It is a long flat, and then the finale is explosive. So even if it ends up being back-weighted, kind of boring for 4 hours, what you still get is essentially a Milano-San Remo in the middle of the Tour de France. And then contrast that to the shortest stage that they have this year. That is half the distance of that stage. You know, they have the time trials. I don't love having 60 kilometers of flat time trials in a Grand Tour. How they've done the time trials is really smart. There is a time trial in the first week, which means, you know, a rider, a Tom Dumoulin type time trial motor, he's going to have to really go deep in the first week of the Tour to eke out as much of an advantage as he can. The rest of the Tour, all the way pretty much until the final day, he's just going to be holding on for dear life, trying to maintain that damage, mitigate his losses in the climbs so he can remain within striking distance when it comes to that final time trial on the penultimate day of the race. And I love time trials on the penultimate day of the race. I think that it worked so well last year that they've just decided to go ahead and do it again. When it's so close to the finish of the race, it just puts so much pressure not only on the time trial specialists to perform on that day, but on the climbers to attack and make the difference before the time trial because they're going to be at a disadvantage. It's exactly what we're seeing this year in the Vuelta a España. It just makes for a really interesting race. And you know, the mountains that they picked, also there's some iconic mountains. We have the Tourmalet, Ventoux twice. I personally don't like the Ventoux stage. It's going to be really boring up until that final climb. If you want to watch that race, I don't know, go watch the Mont Ventoux Challenge. That is a one-day race that's basically just the route that they put in, and it's not that great until the final climb. When it gets great, it's going to be really good, but you know, not worth the hype in my opinion. Then you also have these lesser-known climbs like the Col de la Portette. It was unveiled in 2018. It's the only time it's been raced. Fantastic battle, the Nairo Quintana one. So, you know, I think that this tour, it just has a little bit of everything, and whatever kind of race you want to watch, you're going to get to see it in the tour. And that brings me to my absolute favorite part, which is the first week. It kicks off in Brittany, and these are just classics. We're gonna have basically 3 days of classics to kick off the tour. It always kicks off with, you know, a lot of nerves in the peloton. You put that with the punchy climbs, the crosswinds in Brittany. It's gonna be such an amazing start to the race. I think start to finish, we are looking at the best Tour de France course that I have seen in a very long time.
I too really love the start in Brittany. I think the Mur de Bretagne stage is going to be a great way to kick off the 2021 Tour de France. There's not a lot that I don't like about this Tour de France route. My one caveat would be the rest day in teens at altitude. That's not super nice for the racers who probably want to sleep down as close to sea level as possible to have as much oxygen as they can on their one of very few days off during the Tour de France. The Tour didn't make it to teens in 2019 due to the freak landslide that came down. So it is a bit of repayment to that community to bring the Tour de France back. All in all, I think it's going to be a super exciting Tour de France. Can't wait to see it kick off. Of course, La Course will also be returning the women's race during the Tour de France and will be held on the same day as Stage 2 on a circuit on the Mur de Bretagne climb, which should make for a super exciting La Course race. Last year's race was also super exciting with Lizzie Deignan and Marianne Vos going to the line with a bike throw. All that being said, or one caveat on La Course is we would like to see more of them. More La Course stages at the Tour de France. Please.
Well, we went around and around, but I think that we finally did settle on something we agree on. Overall, this Tour de France course, I think it's going to be really, really good. It's well thought out, at least. And if there's one bone I have to pick, we want more La Course stages. It's about time. Let's make it happen.